This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
And okay, I'm going to have Shabbos Shabbosai as we prepare for Parshas V'aschanan. Today, of course, is also Tu B'Av. It's also 2 days after the yahrzeit of the Megala Amukos, Zechus Yagin Aleinu, and we say we already had Shiur on Monday. What is the significance of the 515? We said over from the Arizal and from the Belzer Rebbe, and on Wednesday we learned from the Pnei Yoshua what the significance of the 515 was. The Arizal said 515 is the Moshe Rabbeinu actually built the roof of the Beis Hamikdash, right? Hashem with his machna, he built the first wall, and then Abraham built the second wall, and Yitzchak built the Sada, the third wall, and Yaakov built Bayis, he built the fourth, and Moshe Rabbeinu built the roof. And then we learned on Wednesday from the Pnei Yoshua the significance of the 515. Either that was the number of tefillos, or connected the 6 batei dinim. And today we still are not able to get beyond the first pasuk of this week's parsha, V'aschanan Hashem. But as we mentioned, the Megala Amukos has 252 different explanations, and we may cover a few of them today. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu says, V'aschanan al Hashem ba'isa hileimar, and we learned already a number of times the Medrash in Dvarim Rabbah, Parsha Aleph, Ois Yud, Uminayin shespala Moshe ba'isei haperek chamesh me'os v'chamisha asar pa'amim. How do we know Moshe Rabbeinu davened 515 times? Shenemar V'aschanan el Hashem ba'isa hileimar. The gematria of V'aschanan is 515. And we learned the cheshbon of the Pnei Yoshua that he started davening on Tu B'Av and taking out Shabbos and then you get 515 tefillos takes you to Zayin Adar Mincha. Okay, we're going to learn a few other cheshbonos today, but basically what I want to discuss is what I was thinking about, all the very interesting things that are jammed into this week's parsha. You have the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu. First of all, you have the Aseres HaDibros. What's the connection between Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah to enter Eretz Yisrael and the Aseres HaDibros? You have Shema Yisrael. What's the connection between Shema Yisrael and the Aseres HaDibros? Somehow, we would like to try to come up with one unifying theme of this week's parsha to try to pack it all together. Okay, so we're going to give 3 new explanations for the number 515. And in the third explanation, maybe we'll understand the packaging of this week's parsha. The first one comes from the Rabbi, the Chasam Sofer, the Hafla. And he gives a cheshbon that many struggle to understand, and I don't think we will either, but let's just get the words. The Hafla, in the Sefer Panim Yafos, quotes the Medrash. He quotes the Yaakov Ruveni, that the gematria of V'aschanan is 515. And by the way, Tefillah is also 515, and he brings a remez. Tefillah leMoshe ishu elokim, Tefillah 515, and what was the end of that parak? Yeroa el avodecha fa'alecha, show your servant your handiwork. In other words, in the Chosam my Tefillah, I want to go into Eretz Yisrael. So, could you remind me your first name again?
Isaac.
So Rabbi Isaac had a very good point on Wednesday. Sometimes when people make good points, I don't give them the satisfaction of letting them know, unless later on. But doesn't mean I don't keep it in mind. Sometimes people tell me something. So Rabbi Isaac made a point that Moshe Rabbeinu, why was he not allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael? Because he sinned by Mei Meriva, and Mei Meriva, the Rebbeinu Shalom told him, "Lachein lo saviu es ha'amazah." You're not going to bring in the people. So, really, Moshe Rabbeinu was told that he's not going to Eretz Yisrael when? At the Chet of Mei Meriva. When did Mei Meriva happen? After the death of Miriam. So really, there would have been no point to daven before then. Now, the Pnei Yoshua had a cheshbon that Moshe didn't start davening until Tu B'Av. Right? That was the cheshbon of Pnei Yoshua, that Moshe didn't start davening until Tu B'Av. Because even though Hashem told him that he's not going in, there'd be no point in davening because Hashem was not on speaking terms with him anyway. But you could make the case that as soon as he was punished that he was not going to go into Eretz Yisrael, he started to daven. Now, Says the Hafla, he makes a cheshbon. When was the sin of Mei Meriva? What was the sin of Mei Meriva? That Moshe hit the rock. Why did he need to hit the rock? Because there was no water. Why was there no water? Because Bear Miriam was gone. Why was the bear gone? Because Miriam died. When did Miriam die?
Yud Nisan.
Yud Nisan. So says the Hafla, Hainu me'asara ben Nisan, from the 10th day of Nisan, shenigzar alav b'mei Meriva b'yom shemesa Miriam. So now the Hafla is saying a chiddush, that it is reasonable to assume that the sin of Mei Meriva happened the day Miriam died, which was Yud Nisan. Now we have a medrash that Milchemes Sichain was in the month of Elul, v'nichnesu ba'arba Yismael, and they entered the Arba Yismael. So comes the Hafla, and he tries to pull the same trick as the Pnei Yeshua, that if you count 3 tefillos a day to get to 515, that's basically 172 days. Assuming he started to daven on Yud Nisan, it says va'az nichnesu la'arba Yismael, v'espalo tefila achroina ata hachiloisa. And you know what? We'll count Musaf also, says the Hafla. You want to count Musaf? We'll count Musaf, no problem. So we have a lot of Musafs from Pesach, and a lot of Musafs from Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos. Nichnesu la'arba Yismael k'tzas yamim kaidem soif Elul. They entered a few days before the end of Elul. So how do we get a cheshbon like that? So we have about, if Moshe started davening on Yud Nisan, you have 20 days of Nisan, and then you have Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, and Elul. Let's give each one of those months 30 days. We'll subtract 3 afterwards. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. Yud Nisan, 120. That's 170 days. But we'll take away a few days. So 167 days. In 167 days, how many tefillos are there?
501.
What?
501.
501, huh? $501 days.
67, right?
And let's say you count all the musafs. Well, in 5 months, 167 divided by 7 is what? 23. So you're ready beyond the 515. Well, so you'll have to stop a few days before Elul. Sometime before Rosh Hashanah, if you're going to count Tfilas Musaf, you have 515. So, unclear exactly. In other words, why are you davening so much? Now the Hafla does not really tell you when the 515 ended. He just says sometime in the end of Elul. It could be a little bit before that if you're going to count all the Musafs. Again, if you're going to count from Yud Nisan 515 tefillos, then, and you're going to count Musaf, that's going to get you somewhere toward the end of Elul. Okay. Chasam Sofer takes it a little bit further. Okay, let's proceed. Says Chasam Sofer, there are 2 places. He says this in his drashos of Zayin Av, the year Taf Kuf Pei Zayin. What year is that? 1827. And then again we're going to see in 1833. He says like this: V'yesh li di'ik oid my time Amar al Toisef v'shami mimenu Taf Kuf Tezvav Tfilos. And now he doesn't want to hear another tefillah. Yesh loymar kvar kasavti b'makam ach. I already heard elsewhere. Yan Miriam Mesa Yud Nisan. Miriam died on the 10th day of Nisan. Now says of Chasam Sofer, I want to tell you a chiddush. The Be'er did not stop as soon as Miriam died. Why would it stop? During her Shiva, the Be'er stopped. It definitely went another 7 days. V'chol zayin yemei avelo lo inastale kaber ad Yud Zayin Nisan. So it did not stop until the 17th of Nisan. But then, va'az holchu gimel yamim b'loi mayim. They went 3 days without water.
During Pesach.
Now, they went 3 days without water. Doesn't say that in the Chumash, in Parshas Chukas.
It does.
Doesn't. Not in the Jewish Old Testament. Doesn't say that.
That's not there.
It says in Parshas V'shalach, when they left Mitzrayim, they went 3 days without water. But it doesn't say that by Miriam, they went 3 days without water. However, we did mention in the past that regarding the day that the man fell, that the Chasam Sofer has a principle that we learn from what it says to what it doesn't say. So if the first time around they didn't complain until they went 3 days, we could assume also the second time they didn't complain until they went 3 days. And therefore, if they went 3 days without water, when did the water come from the rock? On the 21st day of Nisan. How's that? So then, Miriam died on the 10th. The Shiva was the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. And then they went 3 days without water. The water started coming on the 21st, which is what? Shvi Shel Pesach, says the Chasam Sofer. Look at the dichotomy of Shvi Shel Pesach. Shvi Shel Pesach, the Rosh Hashanah dries the water to rock and makes rock turn into water. All phones need to be off or battery removed or canceling service. Thank you. Okay? So it says the Chasam Sofer, look at the dichotomy of Shvi Shel Pesach. Yom Zayin Shel Pesach Shaboy Hoivish Me Yamsuf Uboy Hoitzi Mayim Yitzor HaChalam Shnei Hafachim. We say like this: Mikimi Me Afardal Me'ashvos Yaram Evian Lo Yishim. No. Can I have a pasuk? Can I have a Tehillim? We say. Just say that. Yeah. We say in Hallel in Ashkenaz is page 280. It says, Hashem makes the rock into water. The flintstone is a... These are two contradictory things. On the same day, the Rosh Hashanah dried the Yam Suf, and he produced water from the dryness. Okay? And on that day, on the 21st day of Nisan, on that day Hashem told Moshe, you're not going to Eretz Yisrael. And from that day, on that day, on the 21st day of Nisan, Hashem said you can't go into Eretz Yisrael. He started davening 3 tefillos: Erev, Boker, V'Tzaharayim. V'chein kasav Ma'ir v'Rabbi b'Hafla. And the Chasam Sofer says, my Rebbe, the Hafla, agrees that we make this type of calculation 3 tefillos a day. So now if you're going to make a calculation, 515 tefillos, says the Chasam Sofer, assuming that it started on the 21st day of Nisan, so you have 9 days of Nisan, plus Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av and Elul, which is 147 days, plus 9 days in Nisan is 156 days. But to get to 172 is another 16. That gets you to the second day of Sukkot, Shachris, Shukuf Ayin Beis Yomim. What about Musaf? We don't count Musaf. Everybody knows Rashi and Masechet Avodah Zarah. Rashi and Avodah Zarah says Musaf is not a tefillah. Musaf is just Sipur Dvarim. So we don't count any Musaf. Not Shabbos, not Yom Tov, not Rosh Chodesh. He writes in brackets, Umusafim lechashvinon deleka ela sipurei masi. Musaf is just a story.
But 515 is not divisible. Yet there's 170.
Assuming that he told him in the day,
It's not divisible by 3. So it has to be that one day there's only 2 tefillos.
Yeah, the first day. V'chein kasav b'Sefer Eliyah Rabbah, in the name of the Sefer Amarkal, that Melchemes Sichain and Oig was Sukkot time, and they were about to enter Eretz Yisrael. And why did Moshe Rabbeinu daven so strongly on the second day of Sukkot? Because the second day of Sukkot is the day where in the Torah the Nusach HaMayim is alluded to. In fact, there's an opinion, there's a Tana, that we don't start asking for rain until the second day of Sukkot, because the extra mem in the Niskehem is on the second day of Sukkot, and the extra Yud is on Unisacheh is on the 6th day, and Kimishpatam is on the 7th day, but then the Remez begins on the 2nd day. Shaboy Tchilas Remez Nisach Mem Mem Yud Mem Kedisa Reish Mesachas Tainus. And Moshe Rabbeinu, why was he being punished? He's being punished because he hit the water, because of water. So he needs to daven for water. What better day than second day of Sukkot? Kasha wrote, it's Dagnine Paroi, Perish Rashi and Parsha Shemois. Therefore, he saw that time was an Eis Ratzain, but, okay, says the Chasam Sofer, if you're going to make 515 tefillos, he didn't say tefillah 516. Why not? This is all if he would have davened mincha. He didn't daven mincha yet that day. Because how many tefillos did he daven? 515. But if he would have davened mincha on that day, mincha is the most powerful tefillah, he would have said 516, then he would have been answered. Shachris was 515. How is Shachris 515? Because, does that fit in? If you have 172 days...
171 times 3 is 513.
No, it's not. 172 times 3 is not 513.
You said 171.
Yeah, but we're using 172.
That's 516.
Okay.
Less one tefillah.
172 times 3 is 516, so that means he didn't daven mincha. He didn't daven mincha. Good. So Hashem said, Al toisef mincha, which would be 516, because then, if you daven mincha and I don't answer you, people are going to look down on mincha. Mincha used to be on a high pedestal. People are not going to be happy if I don't answer you mincha time, so don't say tefillas mincha. This is the second cheshbon of the Chasam Sofer, where again, the cheder of Mei Meriva was on when? The Shvi Shel Pesach. According to the Chasam Sofer, in this cheshbon, cheder Mei Meriva, not the cheder Mei Meriva Shvi Shel Pesach, and on that day Hashem made two conflicting miracles. He dried out the water of the Yam Suf, and he brought water from a stone. And Moshe Rabbeinu then davened 172 days, 515 tefillos, getting you to Beis Sukkos, which would have been an opportune time to be mechaper for Mayim.
How about Shachris Mincha and what's remaining?
It's a very good thing to do. Shachris Mincha every day. Every day.
On top of the 515, did he do 515 plus 3 more?
No, David, the 515 were part of Shachris Mincha Marav.
So that's not extra. That he's supposed to do.
Yeah, but he threw it into Shmanes. And Shema Koleinu, he threw in, let me go into Eretz Yisrael.
So he did 512.
People daven anyway. They take out people take out papers, right? They take out their stocks and they say this one should go on, that one. In the Siddur they have these little papers, right? But that's why do you think people daven on their phones? This way they could get the latest. Anyway.
He davened 512 plus Mincha.
Okay, so what?
He davened 512 plus his own.
No. In the regular Shemona Esrei, he threw in a tefillah for 515. Okay, Rabbi said, here's the last cheshbon. You ready for this? This is the cheshbon that we're getting at, and this is a tremendous chiddush that is unknown. A new cheshbon. You ready for this? The 515? V'nachzar, let's say this is from the Drush of Chasam Sofer, the year 1833, number 5. Says the Chasam Sofer, Hinei v'aschanan el Hashem ba'es hahi. What's ba'es hahi? What's ba'es hahi? Hashem, Moshe said, Hashiveni im tekabel tfilasi im lav. Answer me, Adar Yad or Nish, let me know. V'yesh li diak, taf kuf tezvav tfilas hispalal. Why was... If Moshe davened 515, why when he got up to 515 did he say Ribbon Shalom? Yes or no? Why not by tefillah 377? He said this tefillah Ribbon Shalom, yes or no? Why not 253? Ribbon Shalom, what's special about 515? Gam ladaktik ba'isahi, what's special about ba'isahi? So he says, my Rabbi, the Hafly, saw in his Sefer that the way you calculate the 515 is Mariv, Shachris, Mincha. Okay. So look where he says Umeyata.
Where were you?
Umeyata. The first one on line is B'yayim. Umeyata. Nechse Anan. Miriam was Mesa, Yud, Nisan. Miriam died on the 10th. Umistama le'nistale kave'er b'zayin yimei avela. Probably the bear did not disappear. Why? Deloi griya mimishuselach shehimtin hakadosh baruch hu l'havi mabel ad achar yimei evlai. We know when Mishuselach died, the Rebbe Shalom, even though the 120 years were over, the Rebbe Shalom did not bring the Mabel until after his Avelus was over. So probably after Miriam died, he did not remove the bear for 7 days. Hachinami nimsa. When did the bear stop? Kolim b'yayim Yudvav. It probably ceased on the 16th. Okay? Now it's a little different than he said before. In the earlier piece, the Chasam Sofer said the 17th, but that's fine.
Yom Tov Sheni, that's based on.
Va'oz chata b'shemuna hamarim. And it was decreed lo saviu. And he started davening Marav immediately. Well, that was the first tefillah. And he davened 3 times a day, and we're not counting Musaf of Yom Tif, and we're not counting Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. Ki einam rachamim v'tachnunim, like Rashi says in the beginning of Azor, it's just a story. So if you count from Yedzai and Nisan, Molei Chaser, the 514 tefillahs, and Mincha on Yom Kippur. Tefillah 515 was Ne'ilah. Who composed Ne'ilah? Moshe Rabbeinu. A chiddush that nobody ever said before. We know Abraham was Masake in Shachas. Yitzchak was Masake in Mincha. Yaakov Masake in Marav. Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, Chida says, Rashi Chadashim La'amcha, Rachel Imenu. But who was Masake in Tfilas Ne'ilah? Moshe Rabbeinu. It was a tefillah to enter Eretz Yisrael. Now how do we get this cheshbon? Well, going back to Nisan, starting, the 17th, you have Iyar Sivan Tammuz Av and Elul is 150 days. It's 147 days. Plus, how many days in Nisan? Let's say 13 days in Nisan. That gets you to what? 160 days. Plus 10 days of Tishrei is 170. How you get 172, I'm not sure. Maybe if you count the 17th day of Nisan, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. That's 30. We'll add another day if it's Malay, it's 14. So that's 171. And maybe there's another Malay. Says the Chasam Sofer, bottom line, tefillah number 514 was Mincha. Tefillah 514 was Mincha.
So if he wasn't...
How is that? That's what the Chasam Sofer says. How is that possible that the third tefillah day is a 14 number? Hainu im tefillah rishayna shespala b'mincha yom yudvav nisan. How is that? You're going to count mincha of the 16th of the 17th of Nisan. So, and Moshe Rabbeinu was masakein tefillas nila of Yom Kippur. So that's a major chiddush. That the tefillah of Aschanan was what tefillah? Ne'ilah. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu says, Bo'is hahi, I davened at that time, at the time of the Nilas HaSharim, at the greatest Zman Rachmim of the whole year. It's the time, what do we say about Nilam Lo'yachshav Eimosai? Therefore he says, Bo'is hahi. And that's why he said, Lamar, let me know if you're going to answer me or not. Because we know there's an opinion that an individual that davens after Yom Kippur is not answered. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, this is my final chance. So Hashem said, what? Hashem said, no, Rav Lach, you have a din of a rabbim. So I don't have to tell if you answer now, because even if you're not answered now, you could be answered later. But the Chasam Sofer is revealing to us a major chiddush, that tefillah number 515 was tefillas ne'ilah. So now it comes out mamish beautiful. That means Parshas Va'eschanan was tefillas ne'ilah. So now I understand what the Lucha Shniya is got to do with the beginning of the Parsha. Because we know Parshas Va'eschanan is about the giving of the second Luchas. And the giving of the Luchas was on Yom Kippur. So this week's Parshas Va'eschanan it's Yom Kippur davening. So we start off with the Tefillah of Ne'ilah. And we say other things that happened on that day. For example, Lucha Shniyos. That's what the Gemara says in Masechta Tainis, Daf Lamed Amud Beis, look at number 6. That it comes out very interesting that the two Cheshbonos are tying together Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. Because the Gemara says in Masechta Tainis that what is unique about Yom Kippur, right? The Mishnah calls it the greatest Yom Tov of the year. Why? It's a day of Slicha Mechila. The Gemara says in Tainis, Yom Shenitnu Bai Luchais V'Achronos. It's a day the last Luchais were given. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying Ne'ilah here. He's davening V'aschana. And how does Ne'ilah end? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's Shishi. That's the end of Tfilas Ne'ilah. But then we got to say Hashem Hu Elokim, right? So of course, right before the end of the Parsha, it says V'yadata Ki Hashem Elokecha Hu Elokim. Right? You heard it here. Now we learn one more beautiful thing. In the beginning of the Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu davened V'aschana Hashem bo'es hahi. What does Rashi say? Rashi says, after I conquered Sichon and Og, I thought maybe the neder was off. God took an oath, I'm not going into Eretz Yisrael. But now I see I'm entering Eretz Sichon and Og. Maybe the neder was hutar. Maybe the neder was hutar. Hashem took a neder. He's not letting Moshe Rabbeinu in. But now we see maybe the neder was hutar. So Megala Amukos asks, in his second explanation of the 252 for the meaning of the Tefillah Moshe Rabbeinu, why would Moshe Rabbeinu think the neder is hutar? Just because he entered the land of Sichon and Og? So he actually says like a Lamda Shavart. By the way, I found it in one of the Lamda Shasar also say this. He says like this. There's a law in Hilchos Nadarim, neder shehutar miktsasai, hutar kulai. That once a little bit of a neder is off, the whole thing is off. And Hashem swore to Moshe and to Aaron, lachein lo yisaviyu es ha'am hazeh. But now Aaron died. So once Aaron died, part of the neder is off. So Moshe Rabbeinu thought, neder shehutar miktsasai, hutar kulai.
Wow.
No, he wasn't Mekayim the
neder. You're not going to bring them in. Yeah, no kidding, you're not going to bring them in.
What's it?
You're not going to bring them in means you're not going to...
Right, the neder, right, it's...
How? Where's it inside?
The Gzera was we're both together not going to bring them in. But now Aaron died, now we're being like separated. Maybe the neder was fulfilled in Aaron.
Right.
So Hashem said like this, Rav Lach, your Avera was worse. So you can't have Aaron take it on the chin for you. Yours, Rav Lach. You did the majority of it, so, okay. The sin of memory. But what we learn from here is that there's some kind of inyan of Hataras Nadarim going on over here. Moshe Rabbeinu thinks that somehow by Aaron HaKoyen dying, that somehow is affecting the neder, and maybe he'll be able to go in. In fact, Megal HaMukas has another cheshbon that a very interesting, amazing idea. Everywhere in the Torah it says Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Lemar. There's only one anomaly, where instead of Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Lemar, it's Vayedaber Moshe el Roshei Hamatois Lemar. Which parsha is that? Matos. What's the topic over there? The Parsha of Nedarim is the opposite. Everywhere else is Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe, and by Parsha Nedarim it's Vayedaber Moshe el Roshei Matos Lemar. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, Rebbeinu Shalom, I would like to be matter your neder. Hashem says, yeah. V'aschanan el Hashem bo'es hahi lemar. Remember the lemar? Remember that strange lemar in the Torah? Back to Parshas Matos, where you gave the Parsha of Hataras Nadarim, where a chacham could be matter. I want to be matter. Let's do Hataras Nadarim over here. So the question is, but who could be matter Hashem's neder? So Megal HaMukar says there's a certain malach. His name is Mi. Mem Yud. He's matter Hashem's nadarim, and that's the remez in the beginning of the parsha. Hashem Elokim. Ata Achilazar Asher Mi Keil Vashman Batzah Sheyasam. Who's like you? So who's going to be matter neder? Me. Asher Mi Keil.
Hashem gave up.
Hashem said, no, we don't need me. Rav Lach, you're a Rav, you could be matter the neder. Rav Lach, you could be matter. But says the Megal HaMukar is a certain thing, and that triggered me. And that is the secret, he says, of why. What day of the year do we do Hataras Nadarim?
Rosh Hashanah.
Not really.
What do we do?
When do we do Kol Nidre? The beginning of Yom Kippur. Why do we do Hataras Nadarim then? Megal Mukar says this is the side of Hataras Nadarim on Yom Kippur. And he doesn't really explain. 1 second. Oh, just give me 1 second. But he doesn't really say something that I'm able to understand. But it did trigger in my mind that why on Yom Kippur do we begin with Hataras Nedarim? Because whose neder would we like to be mater? We want to be mater the neder of Moshe Rabbeinu. Who Moshe Rabbeinu was davening the whole Yom Kippur, let me in, let me in, let me in, let me in. Till finally he was mispala of Aschan Hashem Tefillah 5:15, which was Tefillas Ne'ilah. And that is why this whole week's Parsha, if you look at it, it contains the secrets of Ne'ilah, Shema, Hashem Hu Elokim, and the Tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Luchos Shniyos. If that's the case, maybe that is why we begin Yom Kippur with Hataras Nadarim. We're looking to be mater the neder of Moshe. Because if we're mater Moshe Rabbeinu's neder, then what tefillah could Moshe say? He'll be able to say Tefillah 5:16, which is the Tefillah to enter Eretz Yisrael, the Tefillah to bring in Mashiach Tzidkenu, and we should be Zoicha to finally be mater that neder, and we hear the final Tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu, and be Zoicha to the Nevuah of Eliyahu Hanavi, Nachamu, Nachamu, which, by the way, Nachamu, Nachamu is Gematria 208, the same Gematria as Pinchas Eliyahu, and we should be Zoicha to hear that. V'karvi Amenu, Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.